Live. We are live.
Here we are. Sonic Garden Radio Live. I'm me. That's mAng. Welcome. What up? Saturday.
When I walk the streets
Oh boy.
from town to town, I already know I'm gonna tear it down. When I bathe in your river, what's in beneath my feet, holy sturdy water, it won't make me clean. It's gonna take a miracle. I'll take a miracle today. It's gonna take a miracle. It'll take a miracle today. But I know the future.
Yeah.
The future ain't the
Ladies and
past.
gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Sonic Gardens Radio mAng and Neads Show.
Welcome.
Intro song by the Lightkeepers and our friend Jess Sheldon.
Oh yeah.
Hope you're doing all right in the quarantine out there if you're listening.
Yeah.
Jess, thanks for that was recorded almost 2 years ago now at the that was October 21st, 2017. Wow. Almost
Beautiful.
3 years ago. Amazing.
You wanna march
Is he
me
screaming in your,
up and down
your
that
ear?
hill? I'll be your favorite riddle or your latest thrill. Well, I walk
Well,
the
thank you, Jeff.
middle.
Be
Oh.
really nice if you wouldn't describe every singer that comes on as screaming in your ear.
Oh. That was beautiful. I like that. That was a good.
That's a good jam.
Well, I never
it's a
know.
line.
'cause-
I get my intro song, and then you get to throw in somebody screaming in your ear.
Fucking A.
Yeah, thanks.
Back.
All right, so we're running late today for
Imagine
a reason that we were trying to get.
Oh
our,
yeah, I have to apologize to the
phone
grand- He was right and I was wrong. Kinda, he was right. Kinda.
Yeah.
Let's not give him full.
That's all right.
It was. He was right though. It was. I had a jammed up hole, and I had to get some stuff out of it, and then now we got it so it'll plug right in.
Nice.
So yeah,
We're good, man.
he was right. Fucking old
good.
Angelo.
Cables, you know, they're
Yeah.
all they're messed up, man. They
Man.
don't always work like they're supposed to.
I had them
especially
all
when you're-
worked up. I
Especially
had
when
'em-
you're dealing with splitters and
Oh yeah.
you know, Y cables,
I
things
had
like
you.
that.
I had you worked up.
So
Thought he was gonna hit me.
no, you didn't.
All right. So we
No,
got a
man.
hell of a day today. It's Saturday.
And
What
you
do we
know,
got
we're just
going on?
kind of I guess we're just trying to giving you guys an example of how you should be going out in public, and if you do have to go out, in addition to you know, wearing gloves and such, you should also be wearing a face mask to protect yourselves and others.
So this is good. Now you know, like if you wear a mask all the time, now you know, like on your everyday when you go out, like when you would regularly go out in the world and you'd breathe on people, you know now like what your breath smells like and shit like that. Like so you know if you're like good to go and you have good breath or if you need to work on your breath. So you get that. That'll be an added plus when you do come out of quarantine. So the only problem is you can't drink with the mask. You gotta come up with something clever. I did see some dude put a he cut the top off a fucking like milk jug so you could unscrew the thing.
Yeah.
And
And
he
then
had like a filter on that screw thing, and then you could screw it back on and there was drilled holes in it with a filter on it, and then you could take that whole thing right off and drink, but you have to drink out of like a bottle or something, and then you can screw it back on.
the
Clever.
yeah, that was clever. I saw the same type of thing made out of I think it was a 3 liter or a 2 liter.
Oh yeah.
And they showed how if you take like a larger cap and you put it on like a smaller cap and you like drill it out and everything, the guy had like machine tools, but then if you put a piece of rubber flap in there, and then he basically created an intake and an outtake, and the intake had the filter and the outtake, and then, you know, so that it only works one way when you blow, and it was just literally from like rubber latex gloves, cutting a little circle, putting it in there. It was a pretty sweet setup for sure, but it was just it's just a respirator, obviously. Yeah, so what we're told here is that we got to go with normal like face masks that could be that and then I'm double layered here. Got this one thing. I'm not like overusing. I already had this in my stash at home. I didn't go out and buy a mask, but so
he robbed a nurse.
So
I'm double layered too.
So hey man, I'm gonna take it off because it's extremely uncomfortable, and I am not in public. But and it kind of mutes the voice a little bit.
He's not even in the same fucking room as me.
No, we're okay. I guess
He's in there. He's in like a little office with a window and a door. And
yeah,
I get the big fucking room.
Yeah.
With whatever's behind me.
That's right.
And here's Angela.
So, we're here to bring you guys some updates, man.
Yeah.
We're here to bring you the day 20 of our Central New York lockdown. Anybody that's been tuning in regularly, you guys know what we're about.
So, I have questions.
Sure.
I went by the, on the way down here yesterday. I forgot to say this yesterday. I went by the bank, right?
Okay.
I went by 2 banks, actually. The one bank that I went by, there's a bank across it, but we'll talk about that in a second. So there was 36 cars deep in the drive-thru trying to go at this bank, right? And then across the street is the other bank. There wasn't a fucking soul at that bank. But 36 fucking cars because I'm pretty sure they're not, well, a lot of people don't want to go in. And then I saw another bank in town, and that had fucking 22. They were out into the fucking street, into the road at that one. So, yeah, man.
That's
Times
crazy.
Yeah, right?
So what I just witnessed was, I had to go into a gas station. So I put my mask on like I got here. I had the glove. We talked about that. I wore a glove. Definitely a glove for touching any handles.
Oh, yes.
Without a doubt. But it's just to be extra cautious of anything in the air and being around people. But I sat there, I sat there for a minute when I came out of the store, and I watched 3 different people without any regard just grab that door handle with their bare hand.
Not giving a fuck.
So clearly the message is not getting out there of what needs to be done, and it's just crazy. It's crazy, man. So here we are. One thing I did want to point out is that there has been a slight shift, only 1%, but 1% fatality increase per recovery as a whole, and that was something that's been running at. Of the closed cases, 80% of them were recovered and discharged, and 20% were deaths. But now it is up to 21%. And I know that's just like a number, but and the current status is 5% of the people infected are in serious or critical condition.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so let's give a full overview. You got that? You got the maps up?
I do.
All right. Pull this up here.
Well,
starting with Worldometer.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
Total cases.
Total? We got the total of 1,188,489.
Yes, sir, and 64,000 deaths.
Yes.
And 246,000 recovered. So like I was saying, it increased that number from 79% of the people closed have recovered, and 21% are dead.
So France has passed China. They're at 89.
We anticipated that. Now we've
they
also
passed them yesterday after we did the show.
So there's a lot of negativity coming out around China. They're handling all these things. People saying they own the World Health Organization. And you know, I can't really speak to any of that, but you know, we've been saying here on this show that you know, we don't believe these numbers to be accurate or complete. So obviously, they said you look to any authoritarian regime like China or Iran. You know, these numbers are not necessarily accurate.
They definitely
North Korea, it has no cases. So okay,
they're on lockdown. No, they don't tell much. They're just shooting missiles in the ocean.
right. And so, yeah, man. So it's kind of funny because, you know, obviously I'm that guy that like has to, because nobody else is, or like, I don't know, man, whatever the ignoring people is, but I just feel like when people share false information or divisive, you know, especially when it's like hypocritical or double standard,
Right.
that they, you know, need to be like called out. But then it's kind of funny because so it's like you get, you know, the big thing I'm seeing right now is people just flipping out, you know, over you know, two things. One is sending sick patients upstate to infect everybody and claiming that
that's not how it works.
and then number two was claiming that all the respirator or all the ventilators are being stolen from upstate hospitals. And
Now-
just to like speak to that is that logistically there are so many, and they are attempting to ship them around. And I
Right.
actually saw one, you know, direct line from a friend that works in I think it's like Fox Hospital or Bassett, and you know, he said that they delivered. There was one situation where they delivered 3, and then all of a sudden they came back the next day and picked them up. So yeah, there's some logistic mess ups, and there's grabbing this and bringing it here. But again, you're looking at New York has just, you know, just exploded. New York City just exploded, and I find it repulsive, if I can say that the way people talk about New Yorkers, New York City residents right now, in comparison to how people talk about New York City as a whole or the United States as a whole, because of 9/11. So it seems to me pretty hypocritical for everybody to say, scream for America and put out their flags when 9/11, obviously, most devastated place was New York City.
Right.
So you're weeping for those people, but now all of a sudden it's not in your interest. And another point is that this is fucking Trump's backyard. This is where he grew up. How can he be, you know, this is where he made his you know, his start. Everything about that. To think that, you know, that nobody's acknowledging that he's, you know, treating his own home state and literally home city.
The first person people he ever conned were from down there.
That's my point. That's why he
Right.
doesn't. That's
New
why I
York
guess
City.
he doesn't like those people because
Yeah, but then in the next
they
breath,
already know he's full of shit.
and in the next breath, Kushner says that Trump's friends called them up. You know what I mean? So then that's why they took action in New York. So you can't. Which way is it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's fucked. It's all messed up, man. It's like,
So everybody, and it's true. You know, like my thing is that you got the other part, which is that you know, the tweet from Trump back in the day when Ebola was going on and claiming that
yeah.
it was all Obama's fault.
right.
You know, and so okay, maybe it was. I don't know. I can't really speak to that because I wasn't following that the way that I've been following this. But what I can say is that, you know, his response is pathetic, and our response as a country is awful. I mean, we're getting killed, man. We're getting killed, literally and figuratively and metaphorically.
Yep.
And I honestly am gonna blow the whistle today that I think that we are that this recovery is not looking likely, especially with the division of the way everybody is you know, just treating the situation. Like we were saying earlier, this could last like 5 years if people don't fucking stop going out and, like I said, doing the same things that they've been doing.
Well, I mean, it looks like it would, even if they do, it would, unless they just, one way or another, they're gonna, I mean, I don't know how you would, like, have faith that they would figure it out, really, when they've, just progressed it this way for this long already, instead of just shutting shit the fuck down, you know what I mean? So there's my point being, there's cases out there, it's just spreading, like, you know what I mean? For every 20 people that want to stay inside, there's fucking 30 that whatever, that'll run whatever. So it's definitely still spreading. Like, we should have locked down before, we didn't. Now we're slowing the progress, but you know what I mean? You're slowing the progress. So if we only got fucking 300,000 cases so far in the U.S., you know how long this is going to, even by slowing the process, if we're not going to lock down, this thing's going to go out. You know what I mean? We still got fucking 329 million people, like, where we could still infect if we've only infected 304,000.
Yeah, that's the point.
So
yeah, that's the point of when they're, with the way they're talking, is that we're looking at, I feel like we're looking at maximum infection, which is 70-80% of the people, right?
The way we're doing it now, yes. The way we're doing it now, yes. You're 100% right.
And then a low end is going to be about 5% of those people are going to die, and a high end is going to be around 20.
If we could shut down for 20 days and just be like, yo, hunker the fuck down, National Guard will bring food to your house and throw it at your front door, like, you would stop the spread so fucking, like, so fast. Yes, there's going to be a couple here and there or whatever, but you're going to know who the fuck is sick by the time we come out of lockdown, who could come out. You're going to know what National Guard people are sick, and those people, like, you'll know, like, you'll be able to get a good head on it. And you know what I mean? We wouldn't have to keep pressing this on for years upon years, probably, or months upon months. I know it's not cool. Like, nobody ever wants to be locked down or feel like you don't have rights, but do you want to be like this for fucking, I mean, even if it's only 6 months, do you want to hang out like this for 6 months? Do these people, you know what I mean, all these people that are crying about it and all that, like to me, whatever. I'll be fine. I mean,
well, you still hope, because
no, I mean, I'll be fine. Like, I'm not gonna get bored. I'm not saying I won't get it. I'm saying, like, if I don't go anywhere and I don't do anything, I'm fine. I'm not bored. I don't care about hanging out by myself. You know what I mean? That's not gonna hurt my feelings or any of that shit. Like, yeah, I definitely have a chance of getting it. Everybody does. But if we're all locked down, that's a less fucking, you know what I mean? That brings your fucking percentage way the fuck down. Not having to go to the grocery store, yeah. I mean, our economy is going to be fucked pretty much, man. Like, that's going to be a battle bringing that back. Like,
it's going to take a while.
No matter how you look at it.
If anybody's looking for some wish-washy information and doesn't really know what to do, I have a service announcement from the President of the United States.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh, except for,
I like it.
The CDC is advising the use of non-medical cloth face covering as an additional voluntary public health measure. So it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. They suggest it for a period of time, but this is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it. The CDC is recommending that Americans wear a basic cloth or fabric mask. They can be either purchased online or simply made at home, probably material that you'd have at home. These face coverings can be easily washed or reused. I want to emphasize that the CDC is not recommending the use of medical grade or surgical grade masks, and we want that to be used for our great medical people that are working so hard. And medical protective gear must be reserved for the frontline healthcare workers who are performing those vital services. The new mask guidelines also do not replace CDC's guidance on social distancing, including staying in your home when possible, standing at least 6 feet apart for a period of time, Again, we're going to all come back together here. We're going to all come back together and practicing hand hygiene, which we should do anyway. I'm also signing a directive invoking the Defense Production Act to prohibit export of scarce health and medical supplies by unscrupulous actors and profiteers. The Secretary of Homeland Security will work with FEMA to prevent the export of N95 respirators, surgical masks, gloves, and other personal protective equipment. We need these items immediately for domestic use. We have to have them.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. I just wanted to point out the beginning part where he said CDC's recommending that we wear masks. This is voluntary. I'm not going to do it. So, and you saw some of the other leaders that said, hey, you know, they're wearing a mask during their speech, and they're saying, hey, this is just going to have to be the new norm for a while. And you know, hey, you can do it. And he's so he can't do it, man. He can't put that mask on. He would scare the people, I guess. That's true. I wouldn't wear the mask if I was the president.
You wouldn't?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't wear it while I was standing up at the podium, but I would definitely. Well, yeah.
You tell him, Jesus.
Well,
come on, man. Can't hide this pretty face, but
yeah.
No, I mean, obviously you're not gonna wear it at the fucking podium, but anywhere else, I mean, you got people coming in there left and right. It seems like, yeah, right,
yeah. He should be definitely protecting himself, but like I said, he's like he was kind of like that way before, and that's what he was saying. And I get it, man. He's like, I'm a guy that I didn't start shaking hands till I became a politician. Yeah, you know, that's not
no
something.
one wanted to shake his fucking hand. Now they're just doing it because they have to. They don't let me fucking going. Come on, now. We can fucking pick on it. We could. You just start naming people.
All right, okay. So the next one, let's pick on fucking Jared Kushner a little bit.
We got to pick on a Democrat too,
because he's the guy that said.
Bring up somebody I don't like as a Democrat.
Well, hold on. We'll fine if that'll.
No,
you know.
All right, we'll talk about Kushner.
Man, he got up there and he went on a rant about these are, you know, why should we give up our federal to the states? They're not the states; they're the federal use. And it was like the most idiotic thing. And somehow this clown is in charge now. Wow. I thought Pence was in charge. Like, who's the czar, man?
Pence is. Kushner, that was something else he had him up there for, right? He's something, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No,
he can't all do everything.
He put him in charge of, like...
One of them can't do shit, so how they all, you know what I mean? They can't... It's not like they're...
He does, and besides, it's like Trump does all the talking anyway. Why wouldn't he, like, give him a chance to, like, even be the guy?
I don't know. Is he going to have... Is he going to fire Pence and hire Kushner?
Is he going to fire
what the fuck?
Fauci?
Nobody's going to fire Fauci. Who the fuck? They don't have. They can't.
He wasn't on. They like every time he's not on stage.
I know that everybody brings a big deal, but he's missed a bunch already, and he had missed some before, and then they noticed he missed again.
I'm not jumping on that one.
Yeah,
I got plenty of other shit to bring up.
Yeah. Let's talk about somebody else.
All right. So the other one that I wanted to bring up.
Oh, Warner, he's waiting in the wings.
Was this is that doctor from that went on Fox.
Oh wait. So listen. So all right. So I don't know a lot about Fox, but I do know that. What's that lady's name? Is her last name? Did the doctor go? Was that lady interviewing him?
Who? What lady?
Ingram or some shit?
And it wasn't Ingram. It was another.
Well, she must have brought somebody on because I saw somebody blow up a tweet about
the guy that compared it to South Korea, basically what we were talking about.
I don't know.
Yesterday.
She had some fucking bullshit doctor on there too, obviously, because I seen some people blowing up fucking.
Well, they no follow up question, and she said, "Thank you very much. Hope to have you back again after this guy talks." The greatest part about this guy was the whole time she was giving her like question.
Yeah.
But you know, phrasing it in a way to make the administration seem competent, and the dude's just like shaking his head the whole time she's asking the question, and then when he gets his chance to talk, he just went off on how we responded in a very weak way. But
but he wasn't a real doctor. Or
yeah,
was
no,
he?
this was.
Is that the test that there are millions of tests available, and yet we don't have that pinprick blood test that you can just sort of get, at your local doctor and know in 15 minutes. But they're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it. They should have been working on it for months. So the fact is, we knew about this when the WHO went, December 31st, 2019. So last year, we knew about this. We knew coronavirus is coming. We knew it was a respiratory disease. We knew it was person to person. Why is it that it's this week that the FDA finally approved these kind of new Abbott lab testing, which, by the way, is one test at a time? It's a great test, but it's one test at a time. It's different than the labs that are doing mass testing, right? So this is a wonderful test. Don't get me wrong. But it's one test per 15 minutes. That's wonderful, but it's not the same volume that you really need. This is better for kind of outpatient clinics and things like that. We needed this months ago. You look at Korea, South Korea and the US had their first official confirmed case on the same date, January 19th. That means since January 19th, you look at what South Korea did and what we did. Their population is 1/6 of ours. Look at the cases they have. Look at the mortality they have. It's a trifle compared to what we're dealing with right now. Because we've had a very weak response, and they had a really strong response.
That didn't go the way she
Doctor,
wanted?
thank you. Very interesting to talk to you, Dr. Desai. Hope you'll come back.
Okay, so a lot of...
That didn't go the way she wanted?
She didn't ask a follow-up question. Said, thank you. Hope to have you back. Not.
They'll never have him back, right?
All right.
So that was Fox, and they didn't know what they were getting into? They don't mean to do that shit, probably, right?
Yeah.
Huh? They don't let people talk bad or about anything, right? You can't.
We're at just running on the insanity.
Oh. Now what do you got?
This is.
You're just fucking pulling it all
This
out
is
today,
the.
huh?
This is
We're getting.
What's this guy's name? I can't remember his name. One of these evangelicals.
I
For
love it.
COVID-19.
Oh,
No more.
No more. No more.
It
No more.
is finished. It is over.
It's beginning to draw up and shrivel and disintegrate.
Yes.
Jesus.
At exactly
Is he talking about his pecker after a night of blow?
on the 29th.
Old shrivel dick.
Good one.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's it. I just
So.
I had a couple little clips I had.
Yeah, you got any more ammunition? Fuck.
Well, the last thing I had is actually
Going after God's people. We're going after.
Yeah, that was what's so funny is
we're
that
going after everybody today.
is that's just like the same as that Jim Baker run. It's like how does anybody buy this
Don't
shit?
you diss Jim Baker, motherfucker?
Yet they're
Jim
all
Baker.
over it, man.
Wow. Jim Baker's fucking. He's got some deep shit.
On that note, old Vic Berger, he did a really good one for the coronavirus briefing.
Vic Berger.
About how Donald Trump talks about having sex with models.
If another major metropolitan area ends up having an epidemic like the New York metro area, that could dramatically change not the model, but the reality of the impact of this virus on Americans.
Now, by the way, the models show hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. You know what I want to do? I want to come way under the models. The professionals did the models. I was never involved in a model, but at least this kind of a model. But you know what? Hundreds of thousands of people. They say to them, I want much less than that. I want to come way under the model.
He wants to come under the model.
Did the models. I was never involved in a model, but at least this kind of a model. I want to come way under the model.
He comes under the model. Yeah, their models fucking suck. Their graphs blue. Fuck. I mean, yeah, we got to talk about some Democrats so I can pick on them too, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm either side, but because I'm not. And I'm picking sides over here. I'm in the fucking middle.
Well,
Angelo's a side picker. I'm not.
I'm not a side. I'm not a side picker. I'm a truth picker.
I want the best motherfucker.
Dude, I don't think I'm not. You know, hey
Come on
man,
now.
you can say whatever, but I
I'm
don't
just
sit there.
speaking.
I haven't been bashing Trump for 4 years. I haven't been doing that.
Me too.
This is all. This
He does
was
a
all
hell of a
like
job in there, man.
This was all new when
Right.
I expressed my
I think he did
my likes for the fringe candidate, the guy from the outside, the true outsider, the true for the people.
We can't.
And I'm just saying, listen, let me finish my
Man,
statement.
I know, but you
And
can't
then
be
he-
going.
But this is my point. I had one person. I wasn't like everything across the board.
Right.
I had all kinds of reasons for, my my feelings, and like I said, or my beliefs and my opinions, and people people trashed that every chance they got with as much lies and bullshit and fear mongering and all that stuff, man. So I'm just at this particular moment, this is something that is serious to me. This is being attacked on our soil, and so yeah, I'm gonna hold the administration accountable.
Well,
for
yeah.
every single
If you-
thing. But I do it to everybody. I was the first one. You had Johnny Camp said that he gave praise to Cuomo for the way he's responding and all this stuff, and I told him that he responded too late. I'd say it about everybody, man. I was blind to this, but they shouldn't have been. And there was briefings. Senators knew. Stock was being sold on both sides, Democrat, Republican. And just like you, I'm not one-sided. But one thing I'm for is I'm for the people. And I'm for the people.
All right, so yeah, he fucked it up. This is my thing with him. If you
Utter
can
failure.
If you can take credit for how great the employment was, that you had got it up so there wasn't a lot of unemployment, then you have to take credit for the unemployment being where it is right now. Now, so you got to take credit for everything you took credit for. This is you. This ain't nobody else, man. You can't start blaming it on the fucking states. I'm talking about Donald. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can't,
it's
like,
definitely-
if you're going to take credit for everything, the same with anybody. I don't give a fuck who you are, you and I. If we're going to take credit for shit and we're in charge, we got to stand there and fucking take it like a fucking person if we fuck up and shit starts to go south, right? Like, it's the way you can't. You can't be just one-sided. Oh, when things are good, but when they're bad, it's nothing to do with me.
Right.
I wasn't running that. That's your fucking.
Wasn't me.
That's your state, motherfucker. This
Yeah.
ain't Shaggy. You ain't Shaggy, motherfuckers. So,
Yeah, man.
it wasn't him.
Exactly. And just to go back, like I said, when Ebola happened, he said the buck stops with the man in charge. And
Right.
then when they asked him, "What's your responsibility?" I have no responsibility. Looks around, who dropped the ball on this? Oh, I
Yep.
don't know. Who
You
fired,
have to- and
who
you'll have to
fired
ask
that guy
them
in
about
China?
it.
Oh, I don't know. You'll have to ask them. I deal with bigger things like freaking extorting the president of a needy country.
It seems like that when people ask him questions he don't like, he'd have a clever way to answer them. But he's not that. He's just not that upstairs. Like, he either, if he doesn't want to disrespect him, I noticed he'll shift it off and let somebody else answer. But then the people that he don't give a fuck, if they ask him a dumb question, he'll just fucking go after him, like
Right.
launch after him. But if it's the dudes from Fox News or a couple other things, he won't disrespect him for some, and then he'll ask whoever he's got there who he thinks can answer it. They come up there, and then they don't know what to fucking say because they know they can't. They know they can't fucking answer it too truthfully because they'll piss Trump off, and then yeah. So it's like a one big fucked up show, like a dysfunctional family, man.
Yeah.
It's like seriously, like it's that. Well, we better not piss Dad off. Fucking, we'll be out on the street. So,
Yeah.
mAng and Neads Show.
It's ridiculous.
It is. It's all, I mean, but it's not. But the thing is, it's not reality TV, and it is if you're watching it. Like, if you're watching this shit, it's like, holy fuck, is this a. Nope, this is a president briefing. All of that shit is. Like, even when they have those
Yeah.
fucking Democrats on there, man, like Nancy and Chuck, like, it's all like a show. They're like, it's. Come on now, man.
I have
Like, there's
a
problems going on, like big fucking problems. If they haven't seen, like, and I do not know how they haven't
come up with something to pause like rent or figure this shit out for these fucking people that are gonna lose their fucking businesses. No matter how many of these little piddly loans you give out to a business, forgiveness loan, but it was a first come, first serve basis. The banks weren't even fucking ready when it went in yesterday or the night before. Like it's, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. All I was saying was, just wanted to add, was that just the whole thing about locking down rent is that in the end creditor doesn't, play that. It's so weird how the Federal Reserve and these people that like own all this actual wealth and do this loaning and like how come they aren't subject to any country or like they don't care what's happening? Like why wouldn't the Fed be like that Federal Reserve be like, okay, we need to, pump money into the economy or we need to take care of this or, yeah, we can decide to halt the bills. You know what I'm saying? They could at least come forward and say, okay, we're just going to say time stop right now. And then, hey, in 3 months, we'll pick it up from here. Everybody owes what they owed 3 months ago. So that would relieve that whole thing, I guess. I don't know, man.
You know what you're going to get out of this too, though, is we're going to have a lot less brick and mortars, and we're going to have way more delivery and all that shit. Because people are going to figure this thing out. Like, why do we need to go to the store anymore when we can have everything brought right to us? And the stores are going to have to figure that out. That they're
which they've already been moving towards that. Like,
right, but they're gonna, but it's gonna have to be more like free delivery type shit. I'm talking about like anything like at a Lowe's and shit like that. Like, it's gonna get where sooner or later they're not really. Everything's gonna be basically like a warehouse in your town, and
right.
They'll be delivered. You know what I mean? They'll just pay somebody to drive it here and there, and you get paid an hourly wage. And we only go here, but if we have to go out 50 miles, like especially if this rolls on for a while, then you're gonna Strong's gonna survive, but you're gonna have these clever people that come up with new things and new ways, whatever, and know that it's built around like we have to deliver everything. So, I mean. Because people get innovative. It doesn't matter. You know that. You know what I mean? People fucking find ways to fucking around things to make things happen. So it's just it's not good for bars, man. You can't really have a mobile bar. You know what I mean?
Right. And then it doesn't make any sense. Because
right.
Obviously. Yeah.
So you're gonna lose shit like that. And there's already like towns like ours, man. There's 3 or 4 of them that kick around. So.
Yeah.
A lot of divorces and shit, I'm sure, because you can't. Fuck. Whew.
Yeah, that's another thing is people are going crazy with
Right. They're like, holy fuck, I really didn't mean to marry her. I didn't know I was gonna have to. Didn't know I was gonna have to spend this much time with her. Bad year, motherfucker. So, what do you think? You want to try fucking Warner out? He must have a bunch of stuff to say because he texted me to figure if we figured it out or not. So he must be itching just to chat. He's probably in there talking to the wall over there. We could try it.
We definitely could. I'm trying to pull something up right now.
All right, I want to hear it. Then.
This one I got the video. So yeah,
but I'll be able to hear it.
There's nothing really to hear. It's just a video I wanted to pull up. But
all right, I can watch it from right here. I get it.
Well, either way, it's no
I'm
big
clever.
deal.
You know me.
No, we can. So you want me
just looking over my shoulder at it.
You want me to try my phone? See if I can call him from here.
Well, you can, or I can just call him and walk in there.
Yeah.
Right around the corner.
If I can get this stupid graph pulled up. Let's see here. Testing 1, 2. So you're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio, mAng and Neads Show. We're running this thing every day. This is day number 20 of our Central New York lockdown, and so far we're hanging in there all right. I don't hear anything ringing at the moment, but you know why? It's because I don't have those channels up. There it is, ringing now. You don't have the channels up either. So we're giving Ryan Warner a call right now. See if he can join us on the cast.
Hi, your voicemail is Ryan Warner.
That is a no-go.
You leave your name and number, I'll return your call as soon as possible.
So, maybe another time. Maybe later. Yeah, we should have tested it out, see if it works. He might call us back. Maybe he's in the, got something going on. There we go. Go ahead and answer it. It's the mAng and Neads Show.
Yo,
Hey, what's happening?
what's up, buddy?
You can hear me pretty good?
I just came to the part of the show. You're like, oh, we're gonna call Ryan, and then it was ringing. I was like, wait, my phone didn't ring.
Did it ring?
I didn't have my phone on me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to turn this up.
Hey, you can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Motherfucker!
you did it.
Angelo. It was Angelo. Well, yeah.
Sort of.
Sort
No,
of.
it wasn't me. It was the same thing I always said.
There was
which-
lint where you plug in my goddamn into motherfucker, so the son of a bitch wouldn't go in all the way.
So it wasn't connecting properly, which was what
Yeah.
that was my diagnosis.
So here we are, man.
Not bad. Man, it was tough not hearing you talk yesterday, Josh. It was even harder watching the recap.
Did you watch it? I was.
Well, you kept seeing how like he would say stuff, and then I would,
Yeah, it sounded, when I watched it again, it sounded like Josh could hear me and knew. I could talk, he's agreeing with what I was saying. He's like, yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
could hear you,
And
but
it
you
almost
couldn't hear
worked
me
out.
though.
But not having the reassurance of knowing that you're following along with my story, it's not easy, Josh. You know,
I was listening to you the whole time, but every time I said something, you couldn't hear me, and I was out here like I had all
When
kinds.
I watched that, it was tough. It's like I was just ignoring you.
I had all
Yeah,
kinds
but
of shit to
now
say.
I'm back. I'm like a little cold trickle, and you're the voice in my ear. You know. Jesus, take the wheel.
So, you got anything for us today?
What's that?
What do you got? What do you got new, man? What do you think? You probably haven't heard what we've been talking about.
Did you hear us?
Us losing the brick and mortar.
Oh yeah, we were talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
you did
think
listen.
that-
You listened to the show then?
Yeah, right up until
All right.
I caught right onto it, man.
All right. So tell us. Sorry to
So
interrupt.
I agree that it was heading that way anyway. That all the brick and mortars were gonna get shut down because of the larger stores, hardware stores and grocery stores and eventually everything, leaving empty towns. So my prediction for the future is that once these corporations get big enough, corporations are going to start buying entire towns. Let's say Walmart.
Yeah, no, we talked. You know what? We talked about that, didn't we? You talked about that a couple years back. Was about how that would be a wise investment for a place like Walmart would be to set up to like buy out Norwich, and then instead of having the Walmart, have shops all through the town and all that stuff too. But this is probably
it's like a decompartmentalized store. Almost had a seizure there trying to say that. Instead of a department store, it would be a compartment store. So it's like, instead of the boy section and the girl section and the shoe section, it will be, the kids' clothing store, and across the street the shoe store. But it'll all be owned by McDonald's or by Walmart, or
Right.
Amazon, or whatever giant corporation. And it's almost like it'll travel circle, so it'll go right back down the mom and pop shops, basically. But it's all controlled by the same. I mean, that's real big corporation. But I can't see why they wouldn't do it, because it would seem like, hey, we care, we're bringing your town back. I mean, you could do it in Norwich right now.
it's almost like the way Chinese has taken over a lot of places like Africa.
Out to the town. Otherwise, we're just going to have ghost towns.
Yeah, can you hear me, Ryan?
I felt that way for a while.
I don't think you can. Flipped it.
Like people are legit going to go out of business. They're not going to occupy the stores anymore, and they're not going to have money to get back in there.
Right.
So yeah, when you guys brought that up, that was my first thought. It's like I felt like Josh. I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. What happened, Ange?
I don't think he can hear me.
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh, okay.
It's a little quiet. It is a little.
I'm a little bit quieter today.
Not very loud.
A little better.
I can hear you.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping for.
16, or no, it's actually 14. Is that a little bit better, maybe?
Yeah.
Check 1, 2. Okay, I got you turned up. I turned myself up on your thing a little bit.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
No, what I was saying was that I had heard, or I guess, basically that's how the Chinese have kind of taken over countries over the years, like different places in Africa, where they come in and say, we'll build all these roads, we'll build these wells, we'll build, infrastructure, and then it's kind of like that country is indebted to them, beyond, their whole existence is given to them, so they
get out of it. It's like,
yeah, you can't get out of it.
In the
Right.
beginning, they pitch you this big thing.
Like the mafia used to do, right?
Rates, you don't understand compound interest. You don't understand any of that. So you're like, yeah, sure, man. Like coffee, man. That's what fair trade coffee is. It's the awareness that is not the type of place you're buying your coffee from, because these coffee conglomerates will go in and buy, because coffee is determined by elevation and proximity to the border. Like that makes good, like places to grow coffee.
You mean equator, right?
It works in South America, but they find places that are impoverished, and they're like, "Hey, man, we'll build a well, just like you said. We'll build you infrastructure, and then you know what? It'll provide jobs, so you can work at our jobs, make money, and then buy back the loan that we give you guys for the infrastructure." But
Meanwhile,
along the way, they just keep adding more shit.
You can't pay back the
And
loan.
then when they can't pay it, exactly, like, all right, well, how about you sign over the property to us, and then in exchange for that, we'll lower your monthly payments, and but then it's like indentured servitude.
Right.
That's it. Then they end up owning.
Yeah, like basically
Sounds like
slavery,
the mob.
and it's something that's been going on for a long time.
Mining
Like,
camps, all that stuff.
I mean, they do it
Same-
even on
same
a
thing.
even on a level of like,
We'll build schools. We'll pump water. How far you gotta walk for water? 40 miles. Oh, we'll pump that in there. Isn't that
Aqueducts.
worth it? Well, you just pay us a little bit, and it's a real thing, man. But I don't know that much about it, other than what I learned on Zeitgeist. I think they're the ones that explained it.
oh yeah,
Who?
Zeitgeist was a great
Zeitgeist.
documentary.
Oh, I haven't caught
It's
that.
actually dude Peter or something, I believe.
Yeah, man. You know what? I have a little bit of a story about that.
Tell us a
That's
story,
cool.
Ange.
My cousin was actually friends with that guy and helped him distribute those the original like DVDs of that,
Who,
because this was a
Right, yeah, he did. Isn't he in one of them?
yeah, and he's actually him.
At the end that drops his tie.
Yeah,
Or something?
he's like he's the guy at the very end that's wearing he's like wearing a cross, so he's like representing a religious man that's kind of
Oh, man.
giving up on that's letting go of that that ideology that confines us, kind of one of those things that that talks about. But the cooler thing about that is that I don't know if you ever, like, there was a couple different versions of Zeitgeist, but the first one I ever saw, the intro does not jump right into the money end of our society, but actually jumps into the religious aspect of
420.
life, like basically how the story of Jesus,
Praise
there
the
was
Lord.
like 50, 100, 500 other situations documented of people claiming, the same types of things, like the crucifixion, the whole thing about the resurrection, Son of God, like all this criteria, perform miracles and all these things. So anyway, what my point that I'm getting at is that
Take your time.
is that the guy, he's my cousin's buddy, and what my cousin told me about that, because I just randomly brought that movie up, and then he was like, that guy's my friend. I helped him distribute those, and he said that it started as like almost like a off-Broadway play, where that dude plays music. So he's like a Chris keyboard player with like the ambient sound. So if you did see the same version that I saw, which was the original Zeitgeist, because then it was like Zeitgeist Addendum, and then there's Zeitgeist going forward. So there's like actually three different movies. But the first one just like opens up with this crazy music, and like, you know, the visuals are of, you know, destruction and nuclear destruction and war and like, you know, just this awful stuff. But you know, that just kind of brings in, you know, and then it starts teaching about the history
Sounds like
of
a motivational
of
film.
money. But the interest, like I'm saying though, Ryan, this was an actual off-Broadway like play that the guy did, where he performed the music with slideshows and like explained this stuff. So this was, and what he,
because I remember what you're talking about. That is how the original, it's Zeitgeist the movie.
yeah,
It's like it was going to be the only one.
yeah, like the first 10 minutes is just like, the first 10 minutes is just like wacky keyboards and like, you know, visuals of like war and destruction and awful, you know, people treating each other awful. It's like it's actually hard to watch, but
Like Facebook.
but you know, it's like breaking it down. But this was way before. So this, I remember the first
No, I'm
time
saying,
I
like,
saw
how
that
mean the
that
people are
story.
these days.
It was given to me. Oh yeah, it was given to me on a flash drive. So it was like there was no like go to YouTube and look this movie up, you know. But that actually ended up. That was one of the first like viral. That like, you know, one of the first. That's what my cousin told me, was that it was one of the first like viral videos. You know, ever, because the way, because it spread by like word of mouth. It was like, you know, hey man, you got to check this out.
The DVD that I had was a picture of the Earth rotating under like an iron cage. It was like a little animation. And
Yeah.
It kind of zoomed into it. But the guy was talking, but he started talking about our.
See, you have it on DVD,
I have it on a CD, DVD.
or yeah, like a DVD. I'm interested to see what that looks like, man. You should
Yeah, because it was late, like.
because
I was
I'm
in college in
You should mail it to
2000.
him.
my cousin's not a bullshitter, so like if
Oh.
my cousin isn't a bullshitter, so he wouldn't have told me he was like part of that and it was his buddy if it was just like a guy he knew. Like it
Right.
definitely was, you know, he was involved in like the
'Cause when the movie came
the
out
production.
in early like 2000s, the cool fuckers, the scenesters, you know what I mean, the people who would be hipsters down the road, they were the ones that couldn't wait to tell you they already knew about the Zeitgeist. You know what I mean? Like when the Zeitgeist of the movie's like, oh, the Zeitgeist, you know, I know about this and I know about that, and this, you know, there wasn't a movie, and it was like the thing. It's like their first album was better.
Yeah.
I remember that. So there is something out before the movie, for sure.
Nice.
And that's again, like I'm saying, the first one spent, you know, because this is like, I think the first one was over 3-hour documentary, and it spent like the
4
first,
hours, right?
yeah, it spent like the first hour, you know, just breaking down the religious, the way that you know, Christianity took over,
No, it
and
wasn't 4 hours.
and
You're right.
Jesus,
Yeah, I remember
you know,
that.
the story
All
of
had to
Jesus
do with
Christ, and
the
you know how,
Path of the Sun.
yeah.
Well,
All that stuff, like it all lined up with like, obviously they always, and really that just came from the like Zeus, and like it's just an extension of like the Greek
Right, like the rotation
mythology.
of the Earth around the Sun makes the Sun travel in a predictable pattern, and then mythological stories followed that path of the Sun. That's why the Earth and resurrection, you know, like the short days in the winter, and then the Sun doesn't move for 3 days, like it just stays
Right.
still, because you're at the point where the Earth is like, I don't know, turning and coming back or whatever, but the path of the Sun seems to stay still, and then it rises and brings with it spring and life and all that. So that was the whole death and the resurrection. And like you said, there's 50 other people, like Jesus had, you know, the guy before that
all claim with the same criteria, you know, born of a virgin, like it's so specific, born of a virgin, resurrection, the whole Christmas as far as that time frame for birth, yeah, miracles, yeah, Son of God,
Because then it's in the same thing. I think the money, maybe it's an addendum in the second one, but that's where I learned about the Federal Reserve. Same thing.
Right.
In Zeitgeist.
Where I'm like, oh man, I didn't know. I thought Federal Reserve was part of the federal government, but no, it's just some dudes that are like,
it's just like
yo,
just like UPS. You think it's part of the government,
right? Because it's called the yeah, and it's not. You find out it's not. And that's the biggest one. So really, you're looking at that, and it's almost like the rich people back in the turn of the century figured out a way to bypass the political, even though they own it all. Because they control that too. They realized to be, that they needed to take that over. And whoever allowed that to happen, I think that was maybe Teddy Roosevelt.
Shit. I tell you what, man, Peter Joseph, the dude who directed all that, he must
be,
chickens are coming home to roost. He must be like the Chicken Little. You know what I mean? He's like, I told you. Now it's all falling apart.
Well,
he's explaining how it wouldn't work. Federal Reserve will print money until our dollar's worth nothing.
Well, when I saw that documentary, I said, "Oh, it's over. Everybody knows now, and there's no going back. It's all cat's out of the bag. The world's gonna change. We're gonna start, this and that." And all of a sudden, it's like, couldn't have been further from the truth, man.
Well, you guys know how to shut me the fuck up.
He's still in the back seat. All right, go ahead.
No, I don't have anything to say.
Let's
Keep
get
talking.
off that.
No, I don't have anything to. I don't have a fucking.
I try
nothing.
not to make you just sit there with nothing to say. So I did pull the cam off you.
Josh being a vegan, kind of, or whatever he is, he eats like a fish eats. He doesn't mean to eat meat, but he just eats whatever. But yeah, you embrace something because you know it's right. You know what I mean? Like, I know the whole beef industry and everything like that. It's all just flawed and not good for the environment, not good for my body. So I got on board. I was all about it. But then after a while, like, it just doesn't, it doesn't work, and you lose, like, your conviction and your righteousness. Well, some of us do. Plus, you can't identify as a vegan because all the people who do identify with vegans are, like, unbearable.
Right.
And,
yeah, it's more like something you don't need to talk about.
I knew how important it was. And same thing when I watched Zeitgeist. I was on board with everything. I was like, wow, there's no one's going to believe religion anymore after this, and the whole thing with money. And I was like, oh, man. But then, it works for a little while. But then you just, you drink the Kool-Aid, man. Not necessarily like that bad, but.
Right, not like
it's
yeah, the way they explained how we could grow in, turn major cities into just huge production of vegetation, and just the way that if I guess the biggest thing they said, you never saw this one, Josh, but man, you should check it out. It's a good one.
I don't watch movies,
but
I mean, I
basically
like some shit.
Like this is like one of those have to see. It's actually pretty amazing. But the way that this guy breaks it down is that, like, okay, if there was a Earth,
why do they bring God into everything? And gods?
Because
he asking. Don't.
No, that's why I'm answering, because part of the setup to explain the circumstance we're in has to come from where it all stems from. And he basically breaks down how religion is a means of control, is kind of how it starts.
Money.
And so it was a way to centralize. When church and state became separated, well, then the corruption moved to the other. Now it's everywhere, and no matter what is created, more corruption. But let me finish. So he basically says, if you were to you had another Earth, and we could all go there right now, and we could set it up however we wanted and have any style of life. Would we do it the way we're doing it now? Or would we, if it was starting over, which means if we didn't have the choice between, like, fossil fuels or solar or windmill, you know what I mean? Like, how would we build it to be efficient, knowing what we know now compared to what we knew 100 years ago? So the problem isn't that we don't have the ability to move in these directions. It's the resistance because of the past, because of what, everybody's stuck on the things that, that fade away. Eventually, something becomes obsolete. I mean, I don't know what you can think of, but particularly, but You know, at one time, you know, there was whatever, you know, horses, and somebody putting horseshoes on was 1,000 fucking jobs in the state. And then all of a sudden they're like, if they bring all these cars around, we're gonna lose our jobs. But what? We just have to continue with not progressing because it's gonna shift the whole who's you know, working or what, you know. It's all these weird campaigns over the years. Like we're finding now that just the product of hemp was, you know, not even finding now. We knew this 20 some years ago, but now you're realizing that was just even the criminalization of marijuana was just a campaign of the paper company because they were getting shut down because they weren't. And think about it. You can grow a plant and make paper and make product and make cloth and all these things. And when it dies, there's, you know, it does its job and then it dies. Meanwhile, they're chopping down trees to make toilet paper and all these things and destroying our entire ecosystem and the rainforest, all these things. And it's like, what for? Because they were trying to hold on to what at one time was. That people made paper with wood.
Is cotton.
Yeah, same thing. So hemp replaced cotton. Hemp was able to replace the cotton fields. Hemp's able to replace, you know, people, and which is kind of brutal work picking cotton. You're getting thorned. You gotta, you know, all these things. It's like it's just a better plant for that. So why wouldn't? So when you're stepping into it, you say, what is the most efficient thing to grow? For all this, right down to the seeds could have made oil to run the, you know, so it's like literally like the super plant, and they're like, oh, better cut that down because it's going to affect all these businesses that are making their money. And here we are 100 years later, you know. WTF, man.
Yeah, no shit, man. Yeah. But the same thing, you know, it's the same thing about weed. the politics behind that. Like just the name marijuana, you know, they wanted to link it to Mexico. They wanted to link it to Mexicans because it was cannabis, you know, hemp and cannabis, and then marijuana came after that because they had to have it. They had to make it a Mexican-sounding name. That's what I thought. This coronavirus, I was like, oh, here we go. When Trump said it was a hoax, I was like, he's going to say it's from Mexico.
Oh boy.
Someone probably messed the plan up. The cat got out of the bag in China, and it was supposed to be released on Mexico.
Yeah.
Can you imagine America's reaction if it was the Mexican virus? That wall would be built.
Oh,
crazy.
I see these idiots on there. Oh, because Mexico and Canada shut their borders. Oh, it's cool for them to do it, but not when the president wanted to do it.
What a weak argument that is, man.
No shit. These fucking people, they're all over the place.
I remember a president.
They're like diarrhea that doesn't go away.
A fucking shit stayed out our world for a long time to come, that motherfucker. And we all saw it coming.
Who, Bush? Fuck. Yep. So here we are.
I had my first moment of anxiety today. Like real, legit end of the world. Like I think I should have had it a while ago, but I was outside playing with my kid, doing something, teaching him how to play baseball.
Oh boy!
And then I just had this cold, shitty feeling that was like, "What's the point?" You know what I mean? Like, is he going to be able to play baseball? Is this ever going to end?
Someone knows what they're doing, teaches them.
Yeah, it's and it's weird, you know. But and then I realized I'm like, everyone's still buying artwork. I got a commission for a painting last night. Yeah. Some dudes wants this extravagant painting of rappers playing cards.
Oh,
you know,
nice
candy rappers. Or
I'm like, Jesus Christ, man! It's like, all right, you know, I'm like, but yeah, I'll do it. You know, but it's like, you know, life is just going on is normal. But I wonder how many other people are like really getting a reality check. You know, because I'm trying to tell myself life's going to continue and life's going to go on. But Jesus, man, it's like I'm nervous that I'm actively suppressing my whatever reactions, and I'm gonna have like a breakdown or something, like I'm lying to myself.
Right.
But yeah, man, just to have the thought that I'm like, why should I even show my kid how to play baseball? You know, I should teach him how to, like, you know, hunt squirrels.
Yeah.
Something that'll be useful.
The great animal expert hunting squirrels
But anyway,
with a crotch rocket.
just went dark again real quick.
No, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of those things. Honestly, what I was trying to bring up was and I couldn't quite figure it out was I just couldn't get the screen big enough. Either way, Ryan, it was a chart, and I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's the unemployment claim chart, and it goes all the way back to about 1960.
Oh, all right, yeah.
And it starts like, and it's a mobile chart. I'm gonna try to pull it up so that everybody can see it. But
so it looks like a heart rate monitor.
Yeah, and it starts out, you know, ba-boom, 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 and then all of a sudden it hits right now, and it just skyrockets. Skyrockets
Christ,
so high.
Times like the highest
ever, like since the 60s. And there was a couple awful blips in like the
nothing like this.
stock market crash, recession, 1984, 1970 something, different times.
So this looks like Steph Curry's like shooting charts, or like
This
Michael
and
Jordan,
and this is kind of
NBA
yeah
or whatever, and it's like normal chart, up down up down up down.
no, and this one, and that's why I said like
there's a vertical line, like it hit a wall.
Yeah, I can't even
like 20 feet.
Yeah, exactly. And then the same thing. So they basically they did another one on the percentage of workforce unemployed, and the same thing. Like there was basically yesterday or over the last 2 weeks, it has increased it. 4% of the workforce right now is out of work, which seems like it seems like when we had a stop all non-essential, you would think that it would be more than 4%, but that's just claims. That's
Right.
that's which on the percentage of how many people I guess are working,
Man, all
et
these new
cetera.
charts are teaching me different things about 1% and 2%. These small, insignificant numbers. The difference between 20 and 21 is astronomical because you're talking about 300 million people.
Yeah, exactly. That's where that you saw that I said that earlier in the show was that we dropped to
Because when you're like,
1%.
21, I thought you were gonna be it's 20 to 30. You know what I mean? Like, give me something that makes me like turn my head. But it goes back to that. That the thing I was saying that I learned in school, like the small increments. Small increments are they're not much, but when it's like on the grand scale, it's like Office Space. Ever watch that? You had to watch that.
Yeah.
Nope.
Josh, have you seen Office Space?
Wait. It's a movie?
It's I think Office Space is the one where they beat down they have the beat down on the printer at the end,
Copy machine.
or like not even at the end, in the beginning. And
Well,
they
it's
devise a
I don't know the
plan.
guy's name. He wasn't in too many movies after. Real good one. Jennifer Aniston. was
But
in
they
it.
they
No, I
designed
didn't- I
they
didn't see
designed a plan to like basically round off the cents that are like literally not even 1 cent. It'll be 0.1 cent, and then taking all that money
Like
and putting
Superman
it
3.
into account, and then
So
they
it's
like
Richard Pryor in Superman 3.
made a shit ton of
It takes
money.
little tiny fractions, but it does it from everybody. It's kind of like gas with that little tricky thing they do per gallon. But
I did not see
But
it.
yeah, it accrues so much after time. It's like millions because it's when you skim enough. But anyway,
Right.
now it's like in the reverse order. This 1% is is a ton.
Like if you take a
But here's a good
dollar
the
off
best
a million
meme I've
people.
seen so far. You guys both seen Tiger King?
I
Josh,
unfortunately
you see your Uncle Larry
I
Joe Exotic on Tiger King.
I
Your
watched some,
doppelganger
I watched some time.
grew out that mustache into some chops, and you got your Halloween costume next year.
I
Your mom
watched
will be
some
so proud.
some Tiger. Did you
Tiger
watch
King.
it?
did you watch
But
it?
anyway, the best meme
Did you watch
I've
it?
seen is the dude from
He
Office
must have
Space
lost you.
when he's like, "Hey man, what would you do if you had 2 tigers?" Or what would you do if you had 180 tigers? Like 2 dudes at the same time, man.
You watched it?
Oh yeah,
How was you liked it?
that was great, man.
You
It's
and
fucking
Stace?
brilliant, man.
Did you get
Oklahoma.
your son to
Well,
watch
they
it?
were like the dude's doing like 60 years or some shit in prison now.
29,
Yeah,
I think,
It's
right?
bullshit.
Yeah, he should. He definitely got set up.
Oh yeah, man. It was.
They
it was
wanted to get rid of him.
Brendan Dassey was more guilty than this guy was.
Yeah, and that fucking what was the low guy's name? The little guy with the hot girl and the. There he is.
Oh, someone woke up.
Yeah, he's singing. Sounds like he's singing to you.
We get to wake him up. What a cute little voice.
Does he have anything to say? Does Stacy have some input for us?
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about the pandemic?
How's she feeling?
We are watching Sorry.
What's he watching?
What do you think about the virus going on, bud?
Oh, the virus.
Tell us about it.
What do you think about it?
One can't. You can't go in your office because the virus is going in. And mom can't go to the stadium.
Oh man.
Oh, man.
Can't go to the stadium.
The virus is going around the world.
This kid holds information. Emmett, how are you, bud?
He just took off.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. If you heard that, the virus is in my office, so
Yeah.
you can't go in there.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Oh, I totally knew what he was talking about.
If I was
Emmett.
I was to the door if you were coming out, I would trap you.
I think that's my time. I don't have any help today. I gotta tend to this kid.
All right.
All right, man.
I'm gonna put on the zeitgeist storm. Start her.
Where is Mom?
She's outside in the garden.
Oh boy, she's starting to garden. They're getting worried down there.
Yep. We're gonna grow, enough food to eat in like a week.
Yeah.
Gardening.
Hopefully they do better in the house plants.
It's cool though. I'll tell you what, man. We started it. It couldn't have happened at a better time. Like if you're gonna start a garden, my advice is to grow beans, just because they grow so fast. It's instant gratification.
Right.
Yeah.
Broccoli looks like these little tiny sprouts. These little tiny look like clovers, for Christ's sake.
Right.
And it doesn't look. They look the same every day.
Not as much
It's
glory.
awful. But then these beans. Christ.
Green beans?
Yeah, I don't know. They're just all different kinds of beans.
Did you grow
They're,
peas?
They're like a foot. They're like a foot in the air. And
Right.
these leaves are the size of, almost the size of my palm. And they're a couple weeks old. So it's like that's the only thing I care about. I'm like, look at those beans.
Right.
So we're pretty excited about the garden.
Did you put some string up so they have somewhere to climb, or?
I guess so. I mean, we're doing the same thing. Sure doesn't have peas.
Yeah.
But I guess they need lattice work or something, right?
Fucking A. Yeah, they do. String.
I don't know.
You gotta get it together, man.
You just gotta. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for having me, mAng and Neads.
All right, bud.
Thanks for calling in,
I'm
Ryan.
gonna keep watching, make sure I keep my eye on what's happening.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
know the toll? This is probably a good time to recap it. Do you know how many cases in Shenango County?
Sure, I'll pull
Shenango
that up.
County?
Yeah.
Oh, it's infested like a trailer.
Let me give you what
there's
I'll give you what they
yesterday,
got on the John Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tune back in and then I can catch, because that's what I want to keep my eye on.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks for the info.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll probably, one of these days I'll be able to spend longer on here.
All right.
But,
All right, brother.
John,
Thank-
good hearing your voice this time, man.
Yeah. We worked out some
All
kinks.
right, bros.
Later, bud.
All right, peace.
Man.
Yeah. See you, Emmett.
All right, so to fill everybody in on that, see these numbers,
What happened?
they're so behind. Like I got the map pulled up. I'm
Oh.
zoomed in on.
Well, New York, I'll run that real quick. New York's at a total cases of 113,704.
Okay.
And we have 10,228 new cases since yesterday. So what else? What do you got for me?
He was just looking for specifically
Shenango
of
County?
like Shenango County, which again I'm gonna click it. 39 cases, which
Oh.
is a hot spot in the area. Even Tioga County only has 8 reported.
Oh.
Um,
Madison County's got like 55, I believe.
yeah, so we're like, yeah.
It's spreading.
I did see a note from Bassett on Facebook that
What did it say?
And that was, let's see, shit,
mAng and Neads Show.
mAng and Neads Show, Sonic Gardens Radio. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I lost it. Maybe it was an email. Either way, it basically just said that they did say that Bassett was a hot spot.
Oh.
Or Norwich, Shenango County is a hot spot in the area.
Oh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna pull up a tune here.
All right.
Give you a little segue, and maybe I can pull up this chart that I wanted to show you guys on the unemployment thingy. But in the meantime, you're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio, mAng and Neads Show.
mAng and Neads
I've been up on Porcelain Ridge early in the morning. I've been down on the avenue late at night. But the time I remember most of all, my darling, was the time that I spent with you that night. I left my
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Sonic Gardens Radio, mAng and Neads Show. All right.
All right.
That was Pep and Jeff doing Beaver Meadow.
Yeah.
For all you out there.
Yeah.
In Shenango County. Ever been to Beaver Meadow? You know, and all the other places mentioned. That was great. All right, hey, I finally got this this chart that I wanted to pull up here, and I'm gonna pull this up. Basically, what this chart shows is the unemployment, and it's kind of like a little heartbeat motion graph, and it starts at about 1960. So I imagine in the Great Depression, numbers were pretty rocketed at the time, but this is in our last 60 years. The last 60 years of unemployment. So here we go. Hoping.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. He's back onto that, just so you know.
Oh, isn't that great?
He wants fans
man.
back in the arenas, Ange. Uh-oh.
Oh, we
what
got
do you
a call
got,
in.
Ange?
I want to see basketball and baseball.
All right, we got a call in on the hotline.
To the golf course.
I'm going to take this one right here. It's a call from a WeGo. Here we go. The mAng and Neads Show, Sonic Gardens Radio. How you doing?
They didn't want to hear your voice.
Hello?
They hung up on you.
Like we have for all of my life.
Oh, is that a call from Trump, maybe?
It might have been him.
No, I still have a,
They don't want to be.
the phone is
6
on.
feet away.
There's nobody talking here.
Some restaurant
There we
man
go.
called up and
All
said,
right.
"I'm worried because
Well,
they have
guys, call in number 607.
You might as well call them back up.
373.
We'll prank them.
I could do that, huh?
Right.
You'll be back to your number of seats. We can't do that. Otherwise, you're making everything. That means your stadium is half the size of what it was a month ago. No. They're going to be close together, but they're going to be breathing air that's not infected. That's not going to kill people. Please.
Oh my God.
This is our president. Did you pull up the thing, Ange, for us?
Yeah, what's crazy is that it just
It won't let you.
Hold on a second.
I
here,
am.
let's
That's why I'm
see.
playing your. Playing,
Okay, here we go.
Playing our helping friend.
Cut. Bam.
Okay.
Okay, it's up right now. Watch this thing go.
I'm watching.
Ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, boom. All right.
All
There
right,
was
I'm
a
watching.
huge spike there around
Ooh.
78. And now coming
Okay.
up on 2020. And
Boom! It's still going up.
still going up.
Holy shit!
That is
Still
well,
going.
Yeah, because the 6.6
6
million people is not a small number. All right, this next one that you're about to watch here. So
Oh.
this is the same one again, but the next one is the percentage of the labor force. Okay, this is the same, like I said, same graph again, and look at how it just dwarfs the worst times of our economy in the last 60 years. And I guess my fear with this, so this one here you're looking at, what does it keep just going over the same? Now this one is the percentage of the labor force. So again, it basically looks the same, but as you can see, it was like 2%. I think I'm looking at 2% of the labor force was like not even 2%. Yeah. It was like 0.2%. And now we're at 4%. So my fears with this is that this is really, this is the bad part, because as people are out of work, as the government has no long-term solution for the problems people are having, you know, yeah, everybody's going to be getting a check, but you know, that's not going to last the duration of what, you know, this needs to be. I guess that's why he's talking about, you know, opening up stadiums and trying to get everything pumping again, and making the people make the choice, I guess, you know.
That is something that will really bring life back to the restaurants. I think make them hotter than before. You know, they used to have it, and when they ended it, it was really never the same.
Never the same, man. He's gonna make shit better, man. That's what he does.
So in the end, it's going to be better than ever. That's his
Right.
plan.
Bigly.
It's going to be
All we need
bigly.
is medical.
Some elements of medical. That's what he said.
All right.
That is funny because I forgot the actual
The beginning.
terminology he used.
Terminologist. He's a wordsmith, man. He is.
Yeah.
He's got better shit than I could ever fucking. Ooh. Put him on a plaque. Put him on the wall.
So
Tell
anybody
me.
wants to make that call?
Who called?
607-373-HEAT.
Should we prank him? Who called? You got the number.
I do have the number. Maybe they didn't get through.
Wonder why they didn't want to talk to you. It's the first time ever, right? Nobody wanted to talk.
223. Let's see.
You gonna call him up, man?
We're just gonna give a call back here.
Courtesy call, we call this. Well, hello there.
Thanks so much for calling back. This is Steve Savage calling for the Committee for Police Officers Defense. The call is recorded for quality assurance, okay?
Yep.
Hello?
Oh, this is a real person.
Oh, they were
there.
They were trying to get money. They're
Well,
asking for money.
We currently
The police association. We
don't
could
have
probably
any coming in.
Yeah, sorry. Broke.
So, if you could get 1,000 people to subscribe, sir.
We'll help you. So yeah,
We
little
should call
reminder,
him and solicit him.
hit our subscribe button, and join our show and what we're doing here. We're having a good time.
It's gonna be
Keeping
great.
busy here in the early days of the apocalypse, I want to call it.
Well, come on, let's not get out.
Well, let's talk about this. We started this thing off calling it the end of the world.
Well, yeah,
and
the
we were
end of the
making
world,
jokes
but
about
not
it.
Apocalypse.
We were talking about jokes about the end of the. That is the same word. End of the world, and here we are. We haven't. I think that things have mentally gotten worse. It's like I said. It's makes you wonder if they're easing us in,
and it makes you
for
wonder.
worse. And
yeah, they're
we can't trust anything Trump says because he's so
let's not get out of
wish-washy, man.
control.
No, the wish-washy with, he stands up and says CDC recommends everyone wear a face mask. It's like if you're the OSHA guy and you're teaching everybody about ladder safety, and then you say right at the end of your ladder safety, but I step on the top rung of the ladder because that's what I do. Whether or not you do it or not, you don't say that to the people. You say this is what's expected, and whatever the you know what I'm saying? It's like, why did he have to end that with this is voluntary? And
because
you
he's
don't
got
have
to get
do
a
it.
jab in every time. He'd like to. I got the last jab, motherfucker.
Or I went off the script and I'm
I
not
told
reading
you how
the
to do it, but I'm a
teleprompter.
rebel.
I'm adding my own line to the
Bad
teleprompter.
motherfucker, he says.
He's a bad researcher. We determined that.
Because even the lieutenant colonel admitted it was correct. Okay, wait a minute. Here's the question. So he took this whistleblower.
We don't know the
I
question.
keep saying, where's the whistleblower, right?
Why don't they call him a rat anymore?
No, man.
Whatever
when he
happened
said,
to that, Ange? Why do they make a nice little pretty little fucking word for it now? They're a snitch or they're a tattle. They're not a fucking, you know what I mean? Whistleblower.
Obviously, for the reason that you don't say we need rat protections, you say whistleblower. But whistleblower is it slips into a different thing. It's a rat is someone that snitches to save their own ass.
Right.
A whistleblower is someone that sees corruption and attempts to do something about it. The only way we know how, which is usually turn it over to reporters or make a claim.
All right.
I mean, a big situation, Edward Snowden, he's the NSA guy.
I do, but whatever happened to him?
He's still in Russia. He hasn't been able to come back. It's been seven plus years.
With love.
They keep him. He's protected there.
Asylum.
They cannot extradite him, and he has asylum in Russia. But you see, Edward Snowden, man, it was I think he handled it the best way he could have under the circumstances. And, basically what he did is he snatched all the files and he went and contacted a foreign journalist and videotaped the whole thing, like set it up, like everything was released in a documentary on HBO.
Right.
It was like that moment. So he made sure that the public, everybody knew at the same time, as the people he was telling, and he gave the information to the journalist with, in good faith that they would do the right things with it and not, turn it over. But it's all vague. It was all like vague stuff. It's not like he was turning over the secrets. He was turning over the information that all of our cell phones, all of our laptops, every camera is accessible by the National Security Agency, and they can monitor anybody's phones at just literally the click of a button. And that's what he was exposing.
Right.
There was a lot of talk prior to that, and so after he exposed that, he was used. That's one of the anybody wants to say anything, reasons why negative or critique towards Obama was the way that he talked in his campaign about protecting whistleblowers, but then in Edward Snowden's case calls it treason, and they're looking to put him in prison. And that's not a
double-edged.
That's a double side. So that's was always a ding against Obama.
Dude, he's still going after reporters today, I see.
This is today? This is live?
Yeah, this is live.
You want me to pull up a live, or we might get pulled? Is that what happened to us last time? I'm still confused, man.
No, they won't pull us.
That one got cut short, and it was right when we brought in some shit against Trump.
Yeah, but see, they keep going back for 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you could have had it figured out too. You've been there for 3.
Yeah, he said the shelves were empty, he's saying, and literally, we're almost at 4 years.
No bullets, Ange.
Said that again. And then he throws in, I brought auto manufacturing back to Michigan. I did the best government. Economy was booming.
Now they're asking whether or not we could open up the ship for COVID. We have given the governor of New York more than anybody has ever been given in a long time. I'll just say, I was going to say in history, but in a long time. And I think he's happy. But I think that, because I watched what he said today, and it was fine. I wouldn't say gracious. It wasn't gracious. It was okay. I must tell you, Gavin Newsom has been gracious. Los Angeles, California, the job we've done, and all of California.
Why does that matter if you're gracious or not gracious?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I think when we've given as much as we've given to New York, somebody should say, nice. I'll tell you who's been very nice. Mayor de Blasio has been very nice. He understands what we've given him. We brought him some more ventilators, too, yesterday. But
well, him and the governor are running for the same cause down there.
I know he appreciates it. He just can't quite get the words out, but that's okay.
He says that he needs 40,000.
Please, go ahead.
Back to Dr. Fauci's comments.
To which one?
Dr. Fauci's comments on mitigation. On the reproductive.
Can you turn that up any?
Virus, the WHO had it at, I think, 2 to 2.6. Others had it a percentage point or 2 higher.
You listen to the mAng and Neads Show.
Based on those
Sonic Gardens Radio.
have we managed to bring it down?
Well, Deb, I think maybe you should answer that, right? Dr. Burks, please. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It's an excellent question, and it's why all of the modelers, and I really want to thank them again, they're reevaluating all of their models in light of the level of the impact of the mitigation. Remember, none of us.
Yeah, but she hasn't. She's not as. I don't know. She's a bullshitter too. But again, he pawned it off onto someone else real quick.
We're triangulating right now, and instead of working on R naught, we're looking at testing and triangulating testing, test positive cases.
Well, that's another thing I heard that I saw on the social media. People saying that they're testing more people, so don't get scared because our numbers are obviously going to go up.
Of course.
And now...
But don't get scared. It's still a percentage game.
Yeah. But I know not to get scared, but you should still be cautious. And these people are like, oh, it's just... they're just so, like, I don't get, like... People are fucking dying, man.
It's like I just said. I watch everybody's grabbing a door handle without any regard for what is on that door handle.
I went by the gas station.
They just don't get it. They think somebody's got a cough on them.
And they got at the gas station down here. They got full service basically. They're doing, and if you're in your car, they'll go inside for you and get whatever you want. But still, I see this lady that can't walk hardly, very can walk, and the guy working there's got right a hold of her. I'm talking arm in arm, helping her into the store. He don't, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, he could be infected and
or
killing
she
that
could
old
be,
lady.
yeah. And I'm telling you, she was definitely over 60. She could hardly walk really, so obviously something was wrong with her. But you don't know who's got it or who, whatever. But I mean, you really need to go in the store that bad? Like, have somebody go in there for you. I don't, and I'm not saying that like it's offered there where she was. They're doing that there. Like they will go in the store for you. I just, man, they're just people are, especially if you got health problem. They're just, you're taking your life like you're taking a risk. I mean, maybe you don't give a shit. So I guess
I just think that nobody is taking it seriously. Again, it's because there's such a wish-washy response.
Well,
It's
fucking
not
3,565 deaths in our state, and just because it's fucking 3 hours away or 180 something miles away, come on now, man, that is close. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you love your country, but you can't love your neighbor, whether it's a state neighbor or whether it's the big city associated with your state, give me a break.
Right.
Like, come on. Who's it's like they got the same feeling about New York City as they do about China, and neither of them are good, but it's like, come on. It's like yesterday was everybody's bitching about China and China, everything about that, and then now it's like all I see on there is everybody getting on saying how keep those people downstate.
Yeah, that's
we don't
fucked
want 'em.
up.
And then somebody else throwing out a campaign, separate upstate from New York City. That's our best. It's like, fuck that.
Right.
We would the upstate would be done without New York City. It's like,
what would we do?
We'd
You
have
think our
nothing.
roads are bad
We'd
now?
be the next fucking. We'd be West Virginia and one of these other
Take me home.
poor places that
West.
with nothing there. I'm sorry. West Virginia's a beautiful place.
It is. Our boy's back.
Dr. Fauci said that was a very big moment because it would be a.
I like how I just bring it in whenever, so we get part of the. It's just like it comes to the theme. You know what I mean? You get part of the story with him.
It would have been a very different thing. The other thing, so I appreciate the fact that he did because I was called xenophobic, racist. I was called many things.
Perfect
when I did
timing,
that very
Josh.
early.
You're a douche.
And I got a lot of credit for it.
Not you, Josh.
In the Federalist, because the Federalist covered the whole journey. And they said Trump was, I didn't speak to the author, respected author. They said Trump was right at every single move. And on top of that, he was going through a fake impeachment, a hoax. I was going through a hoax when I made the decision. And that does take a little time and certainly a little thinking time. But I appreciated the fact that Joe Biden announced last night that he now agrees that I was correct. You saw the report come out that I was correct when I stopped people from China coming in at a very early date.
Yeah, a fucking month and a half late.
Which one? What?
And you didn't make clear why.
Right.
I don't know if you saw the videos of sailors cheering for him as he left. Our reporting shows that some
He shrugs his shoulders.
they are worried to re-enlist because they are not convinced that commanders are taking care of their health and taking care of them.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Well, I don't know
How
much
does
about it.
how
I
does
can only
removing
tell
this
you this.
happen?
Here we
Doesn't
have
know
one of
much
the
about
greatest-
that.
Here we have one of the greatest ships in the world, nuclear aircraft carrier, credible ship.
Credible,
thousands
and
and thousands of people. And you had about 120 that were infected. Now, I guess the captain stopped in Vietnam and people got off in Vietnam. Perhaps you don't do that in the middle of a pandemic or something that looked like it was going to be. History would say you don't necessarily stop and let your sailors get off, number one. But more importantly, he wrote a letter. The letter was a 5-page letter from a captain. And the letter was all over the place. That's not appropriate. I don't think that's appropriate. And these are tough people. These are tough, strong people. I thought it looked terrible, to be honest with you. Now, they made their decision. I didn't make the decision. Secretary of Defense was involved, and a lot of people were involved. I thought it was terrible what he did. To write a letter? I mean, this isn't a class on literature. This is a captain of a massive ship that's nuclear powered.
I believe a letter is the proper standard procedure for any kind of complaint.
right.
A lot of people got off the boat. They came back and had
You're really
infection.
driving that Vietnam thing
I thought it
home.
was inappropriate for the captain of a ship to do. I don't want to comment as to whether or not, but I agree with their decision 100%. In the back, please.
Joe Biden actually just attacked you in a tweet. I don't know if you have seen it.
He just what?
Attacked you. He just said.
Well, he didn't write anything. Look, he has people, he has professionals from the Democrats
Mr. President,
writing.
let me just read
L-O
He said
fucking L.
Donald Trump is not responsible for the coronavirus, but he is responsible for failing to prepare our nation to respond to it. How do you respond to that?
Good for
sir?
you, Joe.
He didn't write that. That was done by a Democrat operative. He doesn't write. He doesn't, he's probably not even watching right now. And if he is, he doesn't understand what he's watching. But just so you understand, it was very nice what they wrote out. I don't know, you know, they released it at a strange time, you know.
My president.
Sort of a strange time to release something like that. But he admitted I was right. And if you read the Federalist story, which most of you won't, because you don't want to, but you'd learn something. Because if you go, it goes to a chart, times. I was early. Dr. Fauci, I don't think he's changed his mind, but he said it was a very important step when we stopped China from coming in from the
Well,
heavily infected. We'd have a whole different thing right now. So I don't really know what Joe Biden said. I don't really care. And again, I see every once in a while I'll say something, I'll make a speech, and then it'll be critiqued, and I'll get this beautiful, brilliant critique. Joe Biden didn't write that. Joe Biden didn't write that. He wished he did, but he didn't. Go ahead, please. Back.
he wished he did.
Quick question. China has warned of a resurgence of the virus. Has the U.S. developed a plan if, in fact, a second wave of the virus does, in fact, occur here in the country?
Yes, we do. I mean, one of the things that obviously is parallel
Dr. Fauci.
with thinking about the possibility, as I mentioned a little while ago, about mitigation allowing us to turn the corner very much on the front burner is what happens when we do, because the risk of there being a resurgence is real. So what we need to do, and I believe I said this before, but it's worth repeating, that what we need to have in place, and we will have that in place, is that as you then pull back, you have to have the capability of, in a very pristine, precise way, do the kind of containment when you do see it. Because remember, when you get to mitigation, containment takes the back seat because you're just struggling to mitigate. But when you get it down, you need to make sure it doesn't resurge. So that will require the ability to test, to identify, to isolate, and to do contact tracing. That's what we have to have in place, and hopefully we will at the time that we then pull back.
There you have it. You heard it here on the mAng and Neads Show. 'Cause we can.
Sonic Gardens Radio.
Well, we're humming right along today.
Yes, sir, we are.
Got a lot going on.
I think I brought up all my things that I had wanted to discuss.
All right.
But I don't know. What else is going on?
Oh,
You know.
I mean, fucking end of the world, I guess, or not really, but a lot of shit going on. Trump also you heard him talking about stadiums. He wants to get sports back, and they want to be like they want to be what helps get the economy back on. He says football season will be able to start on time, he says, which would be September 10th, I believe, or 8th. So, there you have it. So they automatically, from what it sounds like, is they definitely want to get shit moving again. So don't be surprised if they throw us right back in the fire May 1st, right? That would be 30 days, right?
Back in the fire. Out of the frying pan.
Yeah.
Into the fire.
Hot.
Yeah.
So
coming in hot. Yeah, man.
I was thinking a different song, but I was singing that one. I was thinking Magadog. But
yeah, I know, me too, actually. And then I was doing that one we do, Red Light.
Oh boy.
Because they all had those similar lines.
Yes. Yes, they do. All right, so we'll wrap it up, I guess.
Yeah.
Fucking Saturday, the 4th of what month we in? April? So we would have 26 more days of lockdown.
Lock them down.
Lock them down. Unless the miracle kicks in and it's like, poof. We're all back to good. So
all back.
Been waiting for it. Been waiting on a miracle. Somebody sang that once. So you've been listening to the mAng and Neads Show. If you haven't been listening, then you've been watching.
Yeah, or
and if
both.
You haven't been doing,
a little watching, a little
both.
listening.
Or if you haven't been doing either, then you're probably not hearing me. So, yeah, you got you got anything you want to say?
No, I guess we'll close this baby out.
He's all out of breath, folks.
I guess I'm all out of wind for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, we'll come back with maybe we'll know some tidbits about some WrestleMania tomorrow.
The the daily
tonight.
Just a quick thing on the daily increase.
Oh no. Heavens.
Where we're at
to Murgatroyd.
We are at
a lot.
71,846 new cases. Actually, I should probably refresh this because we've been on for a little while. I bet you the numbers are up. All right, we have 77,219 new cases today. The United States has almost 30,000 new cases today.
Oh my goodness.
And coming in at 306,854 cases, which is more than twice of the next highest, which is Spain, who has passed Italy in cases. Italy and Spain are both running the highest rate of casualty at 253 people per 1 million. The United States is now up to 25, so every day the death per million is climbing. And disregarding China, some of the best Brazil seems to be, but again, that seems like another one that questionable authority there.
Brazil?
Yeah, right.
Oh. Nah. Brazil's good.
So yeah. So everybody's dealing with it their own way, and we are getting killed.
So it looks like we're gonna pass what USA did yesterday at 32,284. We'll probably pass that. Like you said, we're at 29 right now, a little over, well, a bit over 29,000 right now. So we'll probably surpass that, which isn't. But like the people in the back said, they're testing more people now, so your numbers are gonna go up.
And that's
but that doesn't always mean it's a good thing, motherfucker.
So yeah, we ended yesterday with 32,000, and then today we're at 29. It always goes up drastically. I have a feeling, looking at the charts that we do.
Yeah. Oh no.
Where is that? Shit. What'd you do? You fell apart there?
Nah, it was just I knocked everything out. Oh.
Looking at this, because there's a. Yeah, 306, 8,000 deaths. Yeah, so there was 10,000 new cases in New York alone. But you come down here to this daily death rate.
Oh boy.
And that's the one that, as you can see, I've been saying it because I made a dramatic thing where it goes up, down, up, down, up, down. Well, right now we are in the up section, so we're climbing rapidly. The daily deaths was 1,328 people died yesterday.
Jesus.
From this. So those numbers are staggering. That is literally in a shock mode right now. That's all I can describe. We are all in a complete shock that we are able to stomach this daily, sitting in our homes, even what we're doing right now, laughing and talking. This is like,
you can't be too upset.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying this is a 9/11 every day, and we're gonna suffer this every day for a while. It's just
I
crazy.
Bet Jim Baker's making fucking a fortune on those food buckets.
Yeah.
right?
I bet she is. I bet you all those people are cashing in on it. It's like I said, the TV evangelicals, the whole end of the world shit. Man.
We could do a religious.
We could
show.
become a religion. It's really the criteria is not. It's not that hard. It's
Right.
been money's been trying to make that
We'll just pick a god,
easier and easier over the years.
and we'll go from there.
Scientology.
I bet you we can make up a hell of a story between you, me, and Ryan. We can make up fucking seriously. We can make up a hell of a
Cult.
a fucking story.
The cult.
The cult.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to
Women and children.
Sonic Gardens Radio, and
Mang and Neads Show.
I'm gonna pull up a tune
If
here.
you forgot, this is the Mang
This is
and Neads Show.
I'm gonna give you guys a nice long closeout song that you can listen to, and maybe hey, if you listen to this when you're at late night, when you're getting ready for bed,
Or taking a poop or something.
I like to listen to podcasts when I go to sleep. Just some voices going, and it's any kind of talk is like nice, but obviously something that's not.
You fall asleep. You can fall.
Yeah,
asleep
I fall
with people
asleep.
Talking?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Jesus.
And music, like actually, if I like can't sleep, I go to YouTube, and I'll put on like sleep music.
Oh, I listen to a fan.
And
I listen to a fan.
Yeah, and
I even have a fan app for when I don't have power when I'm on the road and shit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Fucking turn that fucker up. We'll have to talk to Warner about it. He knows all about it. He can fill you in. I get him too. I make him. He's in the same vicinity, so he has to hear the fucking. It's like white noise.
Nice.
All right, Mang and Neads Show.
Sonic Gardens Radio.
Who's this, Tom?
Thanks everybody. This is we're gonna close this out with Cosmic Theo's version of the song Aloha. This was like one of my favorite songs he did in this performance, and dude, killer. This is all loop stuff. He starts out with a beat that he creates on his like an Elise's drum pad. Ooh. Then he has a what is it called? It's called a Technica, a Helicon loop station that he's actually able to run his microphone and his guitar into. So, it adds the same like delays and different things. But hey, man, that's just like the description. So he does all this stuff live on the spot and makes these loops and builds it up. So hey, man, this is like a nice long tune, but I think you guys will enjoy this. You're listening to Sonic Gardens Radio. Mang and Neads Show, day 20, Central New York quarantine. Please like and subscribe. Trying to get 1,000 subscribers, and we'll keep this thing going every day, man. If we can get in on, if we can keep it going, that'd be great.
We can.
Looks like we got nothing else going on right now.
We can do it.
We're eating. We're staying healthy, keeping our distance. I hope everyone does the same. Sonic Gardens Radio.
Thanks for having us.
And your ears, and your hands, and your movement, anything you can. Come to teach, come to be taught, come in the likeness, in the image of God, 'cause you can be like it. With all that humbleness and all that respect. All the power invested in me, be it hard to love my enemies. With all the black bags over the heads of the dead and dying. human race, the less I comprehend about our purpose and play. Maybe if there was a clearer line, then curiosity would satisfy. Time-based prophecies that kept me from living. In the moment I'm struggling, I trust the divinity of all the God. And what the fuck they got planned for us? Cry for the creatures who get left behind. Everything will change in the blink of an eye. And if you wish to survive, you will find the guardian side. Aloha, aloha, ke akua, ke akua. Aloha, aloha, kuleana, kuleana. Go back and forth every single day. The clarity comes to me, the choppy ways. The seasons, the places, and the people change, but the galaxies remain. Energy fields come a body to space. The angels out of cover to the spiritual wage. The hatred it takes of my spiritual pace. Tenfold the mind when the planets are in place in polar alignment. We're on assignment. Bodies on consignment. Turn them to the circuit. Oh, and what is the purpose? What is the purpose? Would you believe it? Would you believe it? If you knew what you were for and how you became so important. Bodies of info, performing such miracles. I am a miracle, made up of particles. In this existence, I stay persistent. I'll make a difference, 'cause I will have lived it. Aloha, aloha, ke akua, ke akua. Aloha, aloha, kuleana. Kuleana, yeah. Leader, just a creature, seeking the features of a teacher. With a follower you lead, in mysterious ways to nature, and I've been to it. Changing management. There are various ways, top of this, monotonous metropolis. Stubbornness is bottomless. My feelings got me talking, I'm wide awake, and I'm taking names. You speak to me like you speak to God. All for love and understanding between the Father and the Son. You believe in the perfectness of where you are. These are my people, this is my babies. This is the land that I would fight for. My solidarity is telling me to patiently move the musical medicine around the planet in a hurry. Because there's no time to wait. We gotta wake up the babies. We gotta stand up and say that we know what we are for and how we became so important. Bodies of info, performing such miracles. I am a miracle made up of particles. In this existence, I stay persistent. Well, I'll make a difference, 'cause I will have lived it. Aloha, ke akua, aloha, aloha, Guliana, Guliana, The day that I don't wake up, transcend the holy makeup. I am capable, I am powerful. The day that I don't wake up, transcend the holy makeup. I am on my way to a different place.